We're not killing the trade calculators. No. We are killing the idea that it's like a checkbook. That's the oldest thing I've ever said. I'm 32. I don't think I've ever actually balanced a checkbook in my life, but
I have.
Yeah, it's like a checkbook where everything has to align.
Right.
My advice for the smarter managers is to know what the trade calculators your league mates are using, because then if you have different values from the calculators, then you know kind of what to offer, what to highball, what to lowball, and get the exact value you need.
Welcome to Dynasty Compass. I'm your host, Jeff Blaylock, the other Jeff B from Football Guys. Thank you so much for joining us today, whether you are watching on YouTube or listening on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. We thank you so much for being here. You are the reason that we are here, just to make you a better Dynasty manager and help you win your leagues year after year after year. One of the best ways to do that is by making very good trades. And we'll talk a little bit about good trades, but we're mostly going to talk about the mistakes that Dynasty managers make, how to avoid those, and how you might be able to take advantage of your league mates that are still doing it. And I am very thrilled today to be joined by Frank Neill, all better known as Frank in the chat. Today, he is not in the chat. He is in the guest chair. Frank, thank you so much for being here, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm excited about this. We've been talking about doing this for a couple months now, so I'm excited to be here and talk some trading stuff, because you have to learn by making mistakes. So we're going to talk about how to not make those mistakes anymore, I guess.
Yeah, I think giving yourself permission to make mistakes is one of the lessons that any Dynasty manager struggles to learn initially, because you don't want to make one. You think to yourself, I'll set myself back 3 years so I make a mistake. No, not really, because if you don't make any mistakes, you're not going to learn, and you won't make any trades, and you will stay an 8-6 team that goes out in the first round for year after year after year. So, let's start with what our ideal would be, and then kind of work our way backward to the problem children. Frank, when you're putting together a trade offer to send to someone, what goes through your mind before you click send?
So the most important thing to me is to be honest with yourself on the direction of the team. I think, as you said before, anyone can be kind of 8-6 and continue to be in the same place every year. I think there will be a lot of people who try to push their team when it's not necessarily ready to be pushed. So I think the most important thing for me is just knowing the direction of the team. And then from there, when you're trying to build the perfect trade, you need to know, are you getting older or younger? Are you trying to score points? And to quote the great Russ Fisher, draft for value, trade for need. If you have needs, that's when you start trading. But especially when you are in draft time, it's always one of the most important things to kind of think about the value, because you can always trade things down the line. But trading for need is the most important thing, and finding the value at the front end is the most important thing. So I think when I look at an ideal trade, it's what can I get the most value for this trade, and what direction am I going in the trade, I think are the two most important things.
You said a moment ago in that those things you'd ask yourself about, do you need points? Are you trying to score points? Can you elaborate a little bit? Because I think some folks might think, well, aren't I always trying to score points?
Yeah, so the important thing to think about is in contending, you have older players who score a lot of points. Devontae Adams was a really good example of that last year. And Derrick Henry is another good example. You're trying to find the most points possible, though you might not always have that down the line. It's a very short time window. So when I say trying to score points, it's about near-term points this year as opposed to always trying to score points. Because sometimes if you're rebuilding, you might not want to win every game, right? You might want to work towards the bottom and get the good picks. So it's about age and points in that specific scenario.
That's an excellent distinction, because you want to build towards something if you are in that rebuilding state. And Devontae Adams having a touchdown season out of his mind, or Derrick Henry running another rushing record, is not going to help you with anything at all. It's not going to get any value for you. You're going to lose out on Jeremiah Smith next year.
Yes.
And you will still have to replace Derrick Henry and Devontae
Yes.
Adams. So you do need to be moving those along. When you're putting together an offer, how much research are you doing on the other manager that you're trading with, on their roster, on their trading history? I mean, what do you delve into that or not?
I will focus very much on roster. I think when you think about trading history and their proclivity to trade, I think everyone in especially more market efficient leagues like Trade Addicts adapts a lot. And you have to be able to adapt with the market. But absolutely, I will always try and target if someone thinks they need something, I think is important, because you don't always need the running back you don't need the third running back on the team. Sometimes you can kind of start one or start two and you're going to be just fine. But some people like having that depth. So it's about focusing on not necessarily like trading history and not necessarily like what they do in the past. It's about what they need now or what they think they need now. And I think that's equally as important.
Do you find yourself having to kind of explain that to them as you're making a trade, that you think this is what I think you need and why I think you need it? So, I mean, are you framing your offer when you send it to them, or is it just kind of the chips that are on the table and we'll see how they respond to it?
So it depends on a few factors. It depends on the quality of the player or how often they pay attention to the league and their team, but also the piece being traded. I think if you're trading backup running backs and something simpler like second round picks and moving up or down, I think that takes a lot less explanation. But if you're trying to have someone separate from Justin Jefferson or CeeDee Lamb or Jahmyr Gibbs, there's a lot of discussion that has to go into it and say, this is why now would be the time to move off or to add him if I'm trying to sell for a lot of picks and a big return. So I think it depends on what they are looking for and what the piece being discussed is.
Yeah, I just actually completed a trade this week with a guy in one of my Dynasty leagues. I had Lamar Jackson and T. Higgins, and he had Joe Burrow and Zay Flowers. And so we wanted to swap those two. We recognized there was benefit in that. And we did a lot of explaining our offers and asking questions to each other. I bet we went back and forth. I think there were 7 or 8 counter offers along the way until we settled on the draft capital that balanced that out for us to both make it. I think we both think we overpaid a little bit, so it's perfect for us. I think that's exactly where it needs to be. But that, I think that kind of maneuvering, you need to be an explanation of why are we doing this? What are we trying to accomplish? What's this for you? And just ask questions too about what are they looking for? Because even if a trade doesn't go through, you learn something from it. You learn something about that other manager. You learn something about valuation, and you might even learn that you may be misvaluing something yourself. And that's all really helpful. I also like that you said that, if you're trading draft picks, that's pretty self-explanatory. If you're on the clock, you're on the clock. I mean, there's no, everyone knows what you're doing. But some of these more nuanced trades, I think you do need a lot more explanation.
Yes, absolutely.
So are you looking, when you make this nuanced trade, and you've explained it very, very well, are you looking for them to just smash accept it right off the bat? Or are you actually hoping that they counter and offer other pieces or explore some of that valuation with you?
It's funny when you are buying anything in life. It can be something on eBay. It could be something at a store or trade market or anything like that. If you spent a certain amount and they accept it right away, you probably spent too much.
Yeah.
And it's about testing how far things can go. So I think, especially in bigger trades, you almost want the pushback, right? You want to be able to say, this is my starting offer. Now let's say we can add a second to that. We can add a first to that. You add this piece back. There needs to be kind of true market value on both sides. So I think if you don't ever have a counter, you probably overpaid.
Yeah, I was surprised by a trade offer I made about last month that it was accepted immediately. I went, well, that was not what I had in mind. Glad I made the trade. I got what I wanted, but I think I probably could have paid a little bit less if I had been a little more judicious in the way that I framed it. But on the other hand, it got done very, very fast.
Absolutely.
When sometimes, of course, the trades just get rejected, and sometimes they get rejected very quickly and without comment from the other manager. They just say no. Do you do any kind of follow-up if you get a trade rejected, or do you just kind of throw it on the pile of, nah, it didn't work?
Yeah, it kind of depends on how quick the no was, essentially. Like you've been through this where you'll send an offer and it's immediately like 2 seconds later, it's just a no counter, no nothing. That means they probably don't want to move off of that. So that's when I'll kind of back off. If there has been thought and someone comes back to you and says like, I'm thinking about it, and then they reject it with no comment, then I'll probably follow up or push back, especially on platforms like MFL where you can kind of write the comments on why you didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that part's important, especially if you do think there's a deal to be done, but only if there's actual conversation. If it's just a straight no too fast, I don't normally push back. I feel like that's kind of where the trade's over.
Yeah, I know. I certainly try to offer a reason why if I'm rejecting a trade, especially if it's one that seems like a fair trade. Now, if it's a really awful trade and I reject it, I can do that without comment, because I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to send you Jamar Chase for 2 backup running backs and a 4th round pick in 2028, but thanks for the offer. Yes. I'm sure some trade calculator somewhere said that was an even trade. It is not.
Yeah, that's always hard to have someone point out these numbers, and I know we'll get to trade calculators at some point, but someone just using numbers to try and say this is what things equal is not the best way to trade, in my opinion.
I agree. I mean, those calculators are in a vacuum, and whatever their valuation is, and it's one of the challenges of Dynasty is that valuation depends on where you are in your competitive cycle. How many years out do you look? Are you trying to win now? Are you trying to win 3 years from now? Do you think you have strong rookie evaluation skills, in which case rookie picks may be more valuable to you than if you are really terrible at that, in which case you might just want some actual players that have a record behind them, an NFL record behind them, rather than somebody coming out of now 4 or 5 colleges that they get to play for before they come into the NFL. If you've got somebody who gets their trades rejected a lot, and I have to say I reject probably at some point 80% of the trades that I get. I probably get about 75% of mine rejected. So that's just normal, at least for me it is. If that's not normal, let me know so I can make some changes.
I think that's about right.
If you're sort of new to Dynasty and you get a lot of these rejections, what would be your advice to that manager?
I think be patient, because I think there will be a lot of times where people will get very frustrated from seeing rejections come back, and they'll start to undervalue certain things just to get the trade done. Yep. Now, if you want to see the ball go through the hoop, trade a third for an old tight end just to get the skids greased a little bit, and then you can start going up from there. But I think especially new managers are very hesitant to blow up value in any sense of the word, because finishing last stinks, and new managers don't see necessarily the value of a rebuild, versus they just want to win games, and that's more fun when you win. And I think the hardest part with that is they'll reject a lot because they like their team as they drafted it. They don't want to change a lot of things. But as you're patient, people will start to realize that this game involves as much trading as it does actual draft picking, because you have to be able to be water in Dynasty and adjust your team as results continue to come out. So if you're patient, they will on their own sometimes start to realize, I need to start making these trades and earn value for my team.
The main thrust of our show today is on the mistakes that traders make. And you and I came up with the list that's got quite a few on there.
Yes.
There's a lot of mistakes that folks make. So why don't you kick us off with these are in no particular order, I think. Certainly for me, they're the order that I thought of them, the ones I sent you. So where do you want to start on this journey of misaligned trading?
Well, the first 2 on the sheet I actually wanted to tie together. So it's trading when you're bored and trading without a strategic goal. So you can trade when you're bored, actually. It's actually something fun about it, right? If you want to just trade for the sake of trading, that's fine, but there needs to be a direction in the back end this whole time. Trading Justin Jefferson for something just to feel like a happiness of trading is probably not the right thing. But if you're bored on a day and your team has been kind of stagnant, then sometimes this is just clicking buttons and seeing what works and trying to get the most value from whoever wants. You never know who wants Justin Jefferson or who needs TJ Hawkinson because their tight end went down at a certain time or is going to go down. They need the depth. There is always a time for boredom trades, but they have to have a direction. They cannot be just for putting trades out just for the sake of it.
Yeah, I've said many times on this show that the biggest mistake that dynasty managers make is they make moves, and trades being a move, but they make moves without a strategy in place. Mm-hmm. They're just making moves to make moves. And, especially when we get leagues that are pretty active but go through lull periods, like typically right after the season is over, a couple of weeks after the NFL draft, the rookie draft, things will die down for a little while. I've seen people offer all kinds of things because they just want action, and they can go to a casino if you want action. Because the endorphin rush is going to fade real fast, yes. But the hole you just created in your roster by trading away Justin Jefferson for 3 2028 second-round picks is going to last for quite a long time.
Absolutely.
So I'm with you. I also agree. I think trading when people are bored is mistaken, but it's specifically for the reason you cited. It's because there's no goal often in place. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's you can always activate a league and engage trade partners and have that discussion year round, but just don't be in such a hurry to do it that you give away a lot of value because you just simply want, say push those buttons and see what happens. You want to see that little trade accepted.
Yeah.
And then you realize that was a mistake.
Yeah. Don't be afraid of the lull. I'm in leagues called Trade Addicts and we have a lull. There is you're allowed to take a break. And I think especially after the winter or after the Super Bowl and it's that dead of winter time before the rookie drafts start, a lot of people will try and force things through because they just want to continue the energy, like you said. Don't be afraid of the lull. The lull is going to have a swell back where people will be excited to trade again. So enjoy the quiet while you have it. It's a weird thing to say because I know people are very, especially if you're just coming off a championship or something along those lines, people want to continue because they were very excited about the championship. It's actually why I started really doing more Dynasty content was because I won a championship and I was bored and wanted to talk to people who weren't just my friends who were tired of hearing me talk. So it's one of those things where enjoy the lull. It's okay to take a break. And your championship team will still be waiting there for you, or your rebuild will still be waiting there for you at the end of February.
I sometimes forget. I know my colleagues at Football Guys forget. I'm sure your Trade Addicts colleagues forget that just because we're tuned into this 364 days out of the year, not everybody else is. And I'm in some very competitive dynasty leagues, very active dynasty leagues that people are just now kind of tuning back into football now that training camps have started. There was a little flurry around the NFL draft, little flurry around our rookie draft, and then everyone's been on summer vacation since then.
Yes.
And, when question I asked earlier about do you kind of look at your league mates' trade habits, one of those habits is who's active when. Because there are some managers who are more tuned in than others, and if you really want to work a deal, you can work a deal with them when things are quieter and the overall market is much tighter. And so if you're the only game in town and they're looking to move something too, that's an opportunity, I think, to move even in this lull period. Mm-hmm. But you can also send great offers, beautiful, wonderful offers to people who are in, Cancun for the summer or in the Alps for the summer, or just simply they don't have their notifications on Sleeper turned on. And your offer sits there for 3 weeks because they didn't even know it was there. And
absolutely.
So that's understanding kind of what the rhythm of not just the league, but the people in it, I think can be helpful. And that just takes some time. Obviously, if you were entering a league this year, you don't have any idea. But kind of keep an eye on that during the off season. Who's tuning in and who's not, and deal with those who are tuning in.
Absolutely.
For me, I think one of the mistakes, and I had Alfredo Brown on here a couple of months ago, and he had this little great story where he had somebody reaching out to him and said, hey, should I make this trade?
I think that's some of the things that we struggle with in both our rookie drafts and just as dynasty managers, is understanding if you're actually competing. The amount of times I get a question where someone's like, hey, should I make this trade? And I go, well, are you competing? And they go, yeah, here's my roster. And I'll go, brother, you're not competing. I'm sorry. Like that's not a top 3 team in your league. Like there's no shot you're competing. And I think that's the biggest thing that happens to us is we lie to ourselves and we say, I don't need any of these rookie picks. I'm going to compete for stuff this year. I think that ends up being some of the biggest mistakes we make.
If you are not a contender and you go out and you get Devontae Adams and you get Derrick Henry and you get Saquon Barkley and you get Matthew Stafford and you're still 8-6, you've really done yourself a huge disfavor. To me, and I think you also mentioned the same thing a few minutes ago. I mean, just misreading that roster, not understanding where you are before you start making moves. You can have a great plan, but if you're starting from the wrong place, then the plan doesn't matter.
Absolutely. And I wrote in my notes, this is the biggest reason for wrong trades. This is when people make mistakes, this is usually the reason why. You can say it's bored or rearranging furniture, misvaluing draft capital. We can do a lot of those, but this is usually the reason why, because you're right. It is the first step of any trade is evaluating your own roster before you look anywhere else or try and change it. You have to know your roster and where your roster is going versus the rest of your league. So I absolutely agree. I think if this foundation is wrong, you can make a million mistakes afterwards and they'll get even worse.
When I said earlier you should allow yourself to make mistakes, you should, but don't make dumb mistakes.
Correct.
Just make mistakes of slight valuation. Maybe the negotiation could have gone differently. Those kinds of mistakes, I think, is what you give yourself permission to make. Don't give yourself permission to think you're a contender when you really are a 6-8 team, and these assets you're bringing in and trade capital for mean you're still a 6-8 team.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree, and I think it's like you said, that's always the starting point. And if you have this right, there are other mistakes you can make, but they're far more minor.
What's next? What's our next one?
So safe floors is the next one, and I think I love the use of the word safe here because a lot of people think that in order to win titles, you have to just be very skilled and know the right players and just continue to score hundreds of points every week. You can't do that necessarily with safe floor players. And you hear analysts all the time say you can be as skilled as you want, but there is always luck to this game. And if you don't take the high ceiling shots and try and move your team to that next step, then you're going to continue to be in that middling spot where you can make the semifinals even. But there are going to be teams who took the risk and are shooting higher than you. And those are the teams that are going to beat you.
This is one that I fell into a lot when I was first getting into Dynasty, that I was kind of in that mode of let's make the tournament and see what happens as I was starting to learn. Those were huge mistakes that I made. I probably would have won a number of more championships if I had gotten on the ceiling bus a lot sooner than I did. But I was with on Jeff Bell's podcast. I don't remember if it's mine or his. We did both episodes back to back, so I'm not sure which episode, whose podcast we were talking on. But whichever it was, he asked me who the most consistent player was from a fantasy standpoint last year, and I said the guy who scored nothing, which probably is true. But the answer he was looking for, zero is a pretty consistent consistent score. It was, I think he said it was Jacoby Myers, and it's because Jacoby Myers never gave you zeros or twos or threes. He always gave you something steady, but he also never gave you 20. I mean, He was a solid, 10 to 14 point guy week after week after week. If you have a whole lineup of those, you will get to the playoffs and you will be shown the door very quickly. You might, as you say, you might get lucky enough to get past round one. Because everybody else is hurt on your opponent's roster, but you're going to hit somebody who's got some heavy hitting guys who could give them zeros, but they might give them 25 points.
Yes. And the funny thing is I think, as you said, everyone wants to make the playoffs and then luck will take it from there. You don't earn anything for winning fifth.
Right.
Like you have to take the chance to try and go for it all.
Yep.
And you know what? Sometimes you string a few games together and you're lucky and you win the title. And by the way, those are the most like anxiety inducing weeks ever, because you have no reason being there, but you keep winning. So that's the most fun way of going, because there's a chance every week that your team could hit these ceilings and continue to win. But the safe floors is just, it's 100 points, 100 points, 100 points over week over week over week. And that wins you games in the regular season. It does not win you playoffs when you actually come up against real teams.
Yeah. When I was talking with Jeff Bell, we were kind of looking at it through the lens of, I don't want to lose by, whether I lose by 1 point or by 31 points does not matter. There's no style points in this. I'm not trying, particularly when I get to the playoffs, I don't care how many I win or lose by. I just want to win. So I've gotten now, finally, after years of struggling with safe floor concepts, the idea of, I don't mind if my top guys give me 3 points, because they'll also give me 28.
Yes.
I'll win by 20 points instead of losing by 1. And that to me is the difference. And there's, of course, volatility. You say it's a luck. I mean, there's luck. I mean, sometimes Jamar Chase just gets wiped off the board by the defensive scheme against him, and that's that. But I'd rather go down with someone like that, or with a highly volatile but high ceiling wide receiver 3, than just to have a guy that consistently puts 7 or 8 points in that slot.
Yeah, and I think JMO is like the epitome of this, right?
Right.
And sometimes you're going to have 2 points because he played the Vikings and Goff, for some reason, can't beat them.
Right.
Or sometimes he plays the Cowboys on Thursday night and scores 1,000,000 points. So those are more fun. And like you said, sometimes Chase has bad games. He dropped 50 in 2021 in the semifinals.
Yep.
Like, I'll never forget that game.
That
was my first year playing
hammered.
Dynasty.
Absolutely hammered. I lost 4 or 5 semifinals that day.
Yes. How many people lost to Pitts and Bijan last year? And Pitts is one of those guys who we keep putting in the trash pile, and then it becomes April and he's back up again, and everyone's so excited about him. But those are the games that are fun. Those are the games you remember.
Next one for me, and you actually mentioned the words earlier, it's what I call rearranging the patio furniture. And it is making some moves that don't really do anything for you. You're swapping handcuffs. You're trading your wide receiver 3s and 4s and 5s around. You're moving your depth pieces around. You're trading 3rd and 4th round picks, and there's no real movement there. I do, like you said, sometimes you just need the layup to get the grease moving, and so a 3rd round pick for someone's tight end 2, sure, because that'll get it moving. But making a habit of that being your trades is also going to get you absolutely nowhere. You expend lots and lots of energy.
I like that. It's work without results, right? Like, and you really like that patio furniture on this side versus the other side for like a day, and then you're like, yeah, it's still the same furniture. And it's the same thing as like moving apartments or something like that, right? You're really excited about your new place that first day or two, and then it's just like, I'm still in the same place. Like, I'm sleeping here and working here, stuff like that. And it's so much work for no return at all. And like, especially if you get counters for something so simple like this, like, oh, I don't want to trade Pacheco because Gibbs could do this. Or it's just infuriating, and it's not worth it. Like, seconds, thirds, stuff like that, I always say should kind of be attached to something else. And, draft aside, right? Rookie drafts, people move up and down all the time, but they should always be attached to something. Like, having real negotiations over 2nd round picks and this, that, and the other thing is just boring. And it's not what this is for. We're trying to change our teams, not add one more bench player that will probably drop in 3 weeks anyway.
Yeah. Or if he does end up starting for us, we're going to regret it because he's going to give us 5 points, which we knew that going in. That's what he'd been giving the former manager before we sent our 4th round pick over for him after 9 back and forths that involved 7 players that also would have made no difference no matter how we put them together.
Yes. Troy Franklin feels like the picture of this, doesn't he? Like, he was a guy who had a couple really good weeks and people started negotiating over him, and then he had like 7 points a game for like the rest of the year. So I don't know. Troy Franklin feels like the picture for this for me.
See, Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims, Jonathan Mingo,
the Broncos, all of them.
Jahan Dotson. I don't know how many freaking trades I have made over the years that have involved them in some form. None of them have ever been the key piece. They're literally either I'm trying to get or give extra value to make something happen.
Yes.
And I'm sure when I end up with them, I end up trying to move them again. I'm sure that happens to wherever they come from. It's like, bartering, and you want that really ugly painting over there so that you can walk out of there saying, I got a balanced deal. What am I going to do with this painting? Man,
can I have your kids' watercolor off the wall over there? Like that'll do it for me.
Right.
I always laugh on the show is like you see these trades that are like player for player and a 28 fourth. It's like that had to be there to get the deal done. And so I swear people just do it for the joke at this point, but you don't need to add the 28. That's not the difference of a deal, guys. Like, just trade the players you need, move along. You'll save yourself headache.
But the trade calculator said that.
I know. That's usually what it is. It says I'm 5 points down, so I had to throw something else in there.
The 28th fourth, and I'm laughing because I just did a deal that had a 28th fourth in it as part of what was going on. But there were more pieces than that. It just was we were swapping draft capital in 2 different drafts, one going up, one going down, and so that was how that worked out. But it was not like, I'm not going to do this deal unless you throw in a 2028 fourth. Like, I really want the 47th pick of a rookie draft to make this trade over here.
I have to get Justin Jolie. That's my difference.
I will say it is aggravating when someone is insisting on that. I'll give it to them because I'm not going to use it. If I have a good roster, I'm going to drop that player as soon as I draft him anyway. So why not? But it's just funny when you're haggling at that point. That to me feels very, very patio furniture-y, even if you were talking about moving Jamar Chase and Jahmyr Gibbs in a trade.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. That's moving like a blanket on the patio furniture somewhere.
All right.
Crazy.
This pillow actually looks better on this side of the
chair.
Lounge. Let's go on to the next one. Where are we going from here?
You said it just now, actually, misvaluing draft capital. And this happens a lot with new players because understanding draft capital is like it's air to them. They don't understand necessarily the value that picks can provide down the line. And this is one of those ones where you kind of have to be patient and I'm going to say this a little meanly, like let them suffer a little bit and like let them get really old and then realize they need picks to refill. That's maybe like the number 2 biggest one is not understanding draft capital and how to use it. And some people will trade a first for a running back they need that week because I need this running back or else I'm going to miss the playoffs and that's it. And they lose out on these picks that they realize down the line. It's like, why did I do that? Why did I trade for this backup running back for 2 weeks and trade this draft capital? So misvaluing draft capital for new players might be the biggest thing actually for new players more than not understanding the direction of their team because it kind of goes hand in hand.
Right.
And using draft capital to grow a team that's middling is where a lot of people start to pull their hair out and say, why isn't my team getting better? It's because you traded the thing that helps you refill your roster every year. And it's so you don't have to pick up some 4th string tight end off the waiver wire because there's usually not a lot of players to pick up.
Especially if you're new to Dynasty, you've just come over from the redraft world. You've never had these playing cards in your hands before. Because you never traded draft picks before. I mean, you never, especially if we get to a startup draft, you've definitely never traded those before. And so, it's these monopoly cards and you're like, well, here's Boardwalk. Let me have the little dog, or the thimble or whatever it is. But I think too with that is mistiming it because your draft capital doesn't have a constant value at all. I mean, it fluctuates from year to year, but not even that, just week to week and month to month sometimes. And I've seen people trade their first and their seconds at a point. It's like, man, you could have gotten a lot more for that if you had just done it at a different time.
And I think timing is important, right? And draft picks are one of those things that normally don't lose value as time goes along. They almost always go up.
Right.
And especially if someone needs like Josh Jacobs or someone older to get that piece, that pick you get back is going to continue to get better the return will be better because they need that player to complete their team, and they understand what they're doing, they're contending, all that stuff. And I think that waiting is the hardest thing, because having the player now and scoring more points for a couple more weeks feels a lot better, but waiting and understanding that the value of these picks can go higher and higher as you wait is the hardest part, because everyone wants to immediate satisfaction for these trades.
To me, the picks value is never higher than when it's on the clock. Because at that precise moment, whoever wants that pick knows exactly which player they're going to get. And the certainty of that being able to pick that selection drives the value up even more. You should be able to extract some more value, especially if you are not enamored with anyone who is available right there. Heath Cummings is on in the spring. He's like, if I have the number 3 pick in this year's draft in Superflex, the first thing I'm doing is picking up the phone and asking number 5 if he's in love with one of these receivers, because I'll take any of them. And if he wants Carnell Tate, then let's work it out. And I don't even need a lot to move off of 3, because I don't take any of these 3 receivers. I'll just let the universe choose for me, and I'll pick up the 27th. Third or second in the process and call it a day.
It stinks, actually, because this draft specifically blew up a lot of the progress that we've been making in terms of draft picks are at their highest when they're on the clock. They went down when you're staring at Denzel Boston or something like that at 108, and you're like, I don't want this, and no one else does. And that's the problem with this draft this year. This was an outlier, people. Like 2027 is going to be an outlier the other direction, and then we'll probably recenter back where we were. But it was tough this year specifically because, and I have a couple of rookie drafts still left because a lot of my friends just draft later. And there are people like, my picks on the clock, my picks on the block, my picks on the ball. Like, no one wants the back end of the first in this draft. So it ruins a lot of the progress that we're trying to instill in terms of draft pick value going up. But 2027 is worth their weight in gold at this point. I mean, not since probably 2023 when everyone wanted a 23 first have we seen something like this, and this is probably even bigger.
Yeah, I made a number of trades back in 2025 to accumulate 2027 draft capital. And so I was watching the Devi guys, and they were talking about 27. And so I've got a stockpile. One of the leagues I'm rebuilding in, our draft starts this weekend or next weekend, or by the time this show airs, it may already be over. I'm not sure exactly where we are in the calendar. But I have three firsts this year. They're all in a row, 104, 105, 106. And then I have 4 2027 firsts. And so it's a great opportunity to rebuild. The 6th pick is kind of
I was actually going to ask you are you going to keep all 3 of those firsts? Because a lot of people try and say break up these big chunks like this. Are you going to keep it?
I would prefer not to take them all.
Yeah.
It's like that old game of press your luck, when you get handed 3 spins, you're like, I don't really want to take these spins, but okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, we'll see if there's any offers, but it is sort of an interesting counterpoint to what we were just saying, which is you're saying draft capital never really depreciates, and I was saying picks never worth more than it's on the clock. Mm-hmm. Actually, there are moments, and it's when you have a big tier break in talent in a rookie class, and understanding where you are on that tier. Are you on the happy side of that cliff or the unhappy side? If you're on the happy side, it will keep appreciating. Yes. The first couple of picks on the unhappy side, on the other hand, you're going to have a hard time getting anybody to want those.
Yes.
And we were talking, I guess, again, of Jeff Bell, and whichever show we were, his or mine, talking about that there's this sort of this need when you have like 106, for example, which I have, your thought is this is a first round pick. I need first round equivalent value to give up this pick. But the market is all running the other direction because nobody particularly wants this pick. But there is a price that someone will pay to move into 106. It's just not going to be a 2027 first.
Yes. And that's another hard part, is because normally in drafts, if you would like to push first round picks, if you have multiple in 1 year and you want to push them to next year because you don't have one in 27 or you just want more in a certain draft, that's a good strategy to try and get out of a certain spot, because people won't value next year like they will when they're on the clock, like you're saying. This draft aside, unfortunately.
Well, I love that you did mention talking about kicking it down the road, because I think that actually can become a mistake.
Yes.
That there are managers who either because they like the trading, they can't get their roster oriented the way they need it to, they can't align it to their strategy, or they are secretly terrified of making mistakes in drafting or not trusting their draft evals, and they keep kicking that draft capital farther and farther into the future. And so these rebuilds never go anywhere because they're holding a bunch of 2028 firsts that in 2028 will turn into a bunch of 2030 firsts because they're not going to actually draft with them.
Yes. And you left out one reason for that, is some people like to perpetually rebuild. And I never quite understood that, but they like to turn the 3 first into 5 first into like the entire first round and then maybe start going for it. But like that takes a really long time, guys. Like this game is about winning at some point.
Yep.
And there are people who like to rebuild for really long periods of time because it's like watching your children grow up. And I don't have kids yet, but it's like watching your children grow up, and you're watching this team grow and grow. And I'm going to keep getting younger and younger because when at the end of that rebuild, I'm going to have some undefeated team and I'm going to win for 5 years. That's not how this game normally works, unfortunately. And sometimes you fall into something like that, but to chase something where you're rebuilding until you're like the greatest team in the history of football is a really hard thing to do.
I love that you said getting younger, because I think that we've got draft capital here as kind of our impetus for kicking the can down the road. But also there's what I call the Florida, or I guess they're now the Miami Marlins approach, which is you bring your rookies in, you get them to where they're producing, and then you trade them away to get another set of rookies and repeat, and you win the World Series once every 20 years, and you otherwise do not make the playoffs. And that is a similar form of kicking it down the road. You have it's almost like taking a running back, and before they get to their second contract, you just trade them away and start over, rather than try to pay them their money or risk them losing value now that they're a year older. And that once someone hits 26 or 27, you're already trying to move on to the next class of people. And that, I think, is also a huge mistake. I think you can do it here and there, but if that's the strategy, is to not have anybody on your team who's older than 26, prepare for a perpetual rebuild.
Yeah. And prepare for losing a lot because, I like Denzel Boston and Mekhi Lemon and all those guys as much as the next guy, but they're not winning you titles this year. They're just not. I don't care how good everyone thinks they are coming out of college.
They may not next year either. It may take a little time with these guys.
Yes.
With Boston, it may take a change of scenery. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and it's funny, right? You put all these bets on what the draft classes are going to look like. 2026 was supposed to look different, right? Because Arch was going to come out, and Lenore Sellers was going to be Cam Newton 2.0. I don't like Sellers, but I understand people are saying that. And Dante Moore was going to come out, and this class was going to look a whole lot different. Sometimes things don't go according to plan, and you have to adapt. And so trying to make these bets on drafts 2-3 years from now when you have no clue. I know Devy guys are smart, and I know they play a lot of football and watch a lot of it, and I get it. You have no clue what's going to happen 3 years from now. So you have to find that line between value now, but also value later. And there is a middle. You don't have to be like winning the title or have 728 firsts, like you said.
7. I could do something with 7. Let's move on. What's your next one?
All right. The next one is over-reliance on trade calculators. And we know a lot of people who have trade calculators and a lot of good companies, and we're not killing the trade calculators. No. We are killing the idea that it's like a checkbook. That's the oldest thing I've ever said. I'm 32. I don't think I've ever actually balanced a checkbook in my life, but
I have.
Yeah, it's like a checkbook where everything has to align.
Right.
And like you said before, we need the 28 fourth to get those extra 5 points to even it out. And my advice for the smarter managers is to know what the trade calculators your league mates are using. Because then if you have different values from the calculators, then you know kind of what to offer, what to highball, what to lowball, and get the exact value you need. So over-reliance on trade calculators.
The trade calculators, to me, I will use a handful just as a check to myself to make sure that I am not wildly off in what I think something is worth or what I think a trade looks like. But earlier in the episode, we were talking about, doing a little intel on the other managers in your league. And if any of them ever say, well, I saw on Keep Trade Cut that blah, 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 I immediately write that down next to my note on that manager he uses, or at least looks at Keep Trade Cut. And I can exploit that if I want to. And that has not been evil. That is, I now know where your price book is.
Yes.
And so even if you don't adhere to it, at least I have now some idea of what you think this trade is going to be worth.
Yes. I like what you said on the using it to check your work. But here's a dirty little secret, new listeners and new players. Those trade calculators are not updated like every day. They're based on rankings that people do probably once a week or once a month, once every couple weeks, and there's a value placed next to it based on a certain algorithm. So let's just say someone gets hurt. That is not going to be updated in the trade calculator right away. So people could see a number that doesn't actually represent what the value of the player is. So that's one thing to be super cautious about.
And then the second is that even when those numbers are, if it's an analyst who's actually assigning the values themselves, they're still being assigned in a vacuum. There's no understanding, because it's impossible in Dynasty. There's no way of knowing how many teams are in your league, whether you're strong on wide receiver, what your opponent needs, or your trade partner, rather, what they need, who's contending, who's not. There's one number that has to represent kind of the median of all of that. And all trades could happen anywhere in this continuum, but this number's still right in the middle, unless you've got a sophisticated algorithm that can make it move. But even then, you've added some precision that isn't really there, because it's still just, as you say, it was probably a number that was assigned sometime in the last 30 days, but sometime in the last 30 days. To me, it's kind of like ADP in the sense that it's a lagging indicator. Mm-hmm. That things have happened to cause the value to move, just as things happen to cause ADP to move. Mm-hmm. But the thing's already happened and it's already moved, but we're still looking at the value of what it was before all that kind of happened. And so, I know a lot of people who are very good with the trade calculators and use them almost religiously. And I actually have kind of gotten to where I just don't want to trade with them, because I'm sorry, I'm not. You want this fourth, fine, but this sort of inability. And I say this because I've had managers tell me this: the trade calculators, because of the way their valuations are set up, you can look at your team and you have guys up here and you have guys down here, and there's not really anybody in this middle part, so you can't make that trade balance because there's nothing here. There's not a 9.8 point player in there. There's not a 10-point player. There's not a 7-point player. Everybody's either a 12 or a 3. And you're not going to – no one wants 4 of your 3-point guys. So it actually kind of saps creativity to me as well, because you're stuck on trying to make the numbers line up, and it has nothing to do with that. It's who are these players? What's their value? What do they do for you, and what do they do for your trade partner? And that cannot possibly be captured in any trade calculator, no matter how good it is, no matter whether it's ours, whether I don't know if you guys have one, if it's yours, if it's any of the other guys out there. We don't have any context at all when we do these things. I don't have any context when I do rankings. My dynasty rankings are based on if I were doing a startup draft today, what would my board look like? That's exactly how my rankings are done.
Yes.
That doesn't necessarily help you in trades because I don't know where you are. I just know that would be if I were starting from a clean slate, this is how I would operate.
Yes.
So ranking to another thing to not over-rely on.
Yes. And that's the other thing we try and distinguish on our show is ADP does not always imply trade value. It's a very important thing to distinguish because if someone needs that wide receiver, that trade value is going to be higher than what the receiver's normal ADP is going to be. And to your point on the 9.8, and there's no 9.8 player, that's how you get like the 9-player trades because someone puts a 12 on this side and a 3 on that side to get to the 9, and now it's even.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm like, why are we trading? Why are we rearranging the patio furniture again to make this work? I really don't want your 5th wide receiver and your 9th wide receiver, but if that's what it takes to get this guy I do want from you, fine, I'll take him and I'll put him on waivers and you can pick him right back up in 3 days.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, for me, the next one that I want to go into is what I would call knee-jerk trades. These are trades that are made very quickly after something happens, and that something can be a lot of different things. Generally, the biggest mistakes of these I see are in about week 2, week 3 of a season, when some hotshot rookie is off to a slow start, or they didn't get their playing time the way they thought, or something else, and on this very little short sample size, people make the knee-jerk decision that this player is not going to do what I think they're going to do. I'm going to move on from them. And you can lose a lot of value because you don't know what the next 15 games might look like for this player. In both directions, they might get a lot better. They might get a lot worse. And so, I try to caution people. I do caution people, don't trade just because you heard a news flash at 10 o'clock and now at 10:05 you're trying to unload the player for whatever anybody will give you.
Yes. I think that's great, especially with the opening 2 weeks of a season or something along those lines, because there are hard schedules in the NFL. And I wrote down a couple of my notes. The Broncos have 6 crazy games to start. The Colts have 4. There are going to be values to be had, especially with people that players are very volatile on right now. Like Waddle is a very love-or-hate player right now. And the people who hate him are going to watch him have a game against Kansas City, Jacksonville, the Rams, and San Francisco in his first 4 games and say, I knew it. Waddle was a bust. Yeah, right. And that's when you as a new manager are going to go and look at what that person needs or why they're frustrated. And that's how you can get someone like Waddle at a lower value. It's the same concept as redraft, right? When you draft a rookie in redraft, you have to be patient with it, right? You just have to let them acclimate, and especially players in new offenses. Waddle is not going to be good week 1 unless just something crazy happens. He's playing Kansas City in a new offense. It's going to be a tough game. Yeah, 16-13, exactly. And people are going to say, same old Waddle, I don't care. And that's when the value is happening. You have to trust in the idea that teams and you invested in these players in your mind, at least. If you may not have them on your team yet, but you liked this player, stick with it. Don't break off your initial opinion after 1 week.
And along these same lines, and we were talking about kind of the initial part of the season, but at any point in the season, a player may have, like Rico Dowdle had those 2 comically ridiculous games last year. And I had got people who offered things for Rico Dowdle that I had that were crazy, including a 2027 first.
Yep.
I gladly gave him away for that.
Yes.
that was one of those trades I hit. I made sure I read it 5 times to make sure that it says 2027 and it says first.
Yes.
Therefore I hit accept on that. But that to me is the same kind of mistake. It's like Rico Dowdle's not going to set historical records weekly. This is against the Cowboys and some other defense that wasn't very good.
Yeah.
In a situation where they were ahead and the other guy was hurt. He balled out. Great. That was 45% of his PPR total of those two games, something like that. So, that was the mistake that the other guy made was thinking that this is now the guy. He's the one who's going to win for me, and I'm gonna trade for him right now. And so, have him.
Yeah,
he's going to come back to earth really fast.
Absolutely, and we are in the time of year for knee-jerk trades, right? There's stories coming out saying Jonah Coleman is like the greatest running back in the history of the Broncos and all these other things now. And
I did not say that in my article about the
I know
backfield.
Yes. Best shape of his life season, right?
Oh, yeah.
And depth charts and all these other things that people are going to make knee-jerk reactions on. Seeing Dowdle is behind Warren in Pittsburgh this week, and they'll get rid of Dowdle because he's the backup. He's not anything important now. We are in that time of year. Just breathe.
Yeah. Do you remember last year when everyone lost their minds when RJ Harvey was at the very back end of the running back chart? He was like RB5. Yes. Everyone is going nuts. Like, guys, Sean Payton always puts the rookies at the end. He makes them earn their spot.
Yes.
Harvey's going to earn it.
Yeah.
So if you want to get rid of him over that, that's the knee jerk. I'll take him. I'll park him because it's going to be a while before he pays off. But I'm not worried about that at all.
Yes. Yeah. The funniest camp story to me was last year when Kendre Lambert-Smith or whatever his name was going to be the wide receiver 2 for the Chargers. And Quentin Johnston was dead and we don't need him anymore. And KLS is going to carry us to a title, and I drafted him in the 4th, and I'm going to trade him for a 2nd, and all these other things. Camp is nothing, guys.
Yep.
If something important happens in camp, you'll know it, or Jeff will tell you it happened.
Yeah, I'm doing a couple of teams on our camp reports this year at Football Guys. One of them is the Saints. The stud of the Saints' first week of practice has been Barian Brown. He has been electric. He is a 6th-round pick. It's the first week of camp. They're barely in pads. They're only lining up against themselves. They're running specific kinds of plays and formations. I hope the kid makes it. He's got return potential, so I think he actually will make the roster. But I'm not gonna just become a PPR monster because he had a 65-yard touchdown catch today at the end of their 2-minute drill.
In 7-on-7,
beautiful play. Don't get me wrong, it's beautiful, but. It's one play, and it's the first week of practice.
Yes.
Hang on, guys. Hang on.
Yes, I agree.
What's next?
The next one is what I'll call stagnation, and that is not trading at all and just hoping things are going to happen or people are going to offer trades to you. You have to make the first move if you want to make a change in your roster. It's like anything in life. If you want to change something, you have to be the one who does it. People aren't going to bring something to you and help you change.
Yep.
So, especially if you're rebuilding or you're trying to if you're trying to make one of those big moves up or down, you almost have to be the first person, because people aren't just going to assume you're ready to trade Brock Bowers away or something along those lines, right? It's he's 4-5. He probably wants to trade Bowers now. People aren't that smart. And if they are, then you play in a really efficient league, and I'm happy for you, and you should stay in that league. But normal dynasty managers are not going to stare at the roster page every week and say, he's 4-5, so I'm going to trade this guy now. You have to understand, at the very least, you have to make it clear to other people that you're ready to do something. Put them on your trade bait. Put them on the trading block, something that makes people aware that you're ready to make moves, and then see what comes to you. And if nothing comes to you, then make the first move.
Yeah, that trading block feature, I know Sleeper's got it. There's probably others that have it. That, to me, I use that a lot because there are people who won't approach me because they can't imagine I'd be willing to part with this player or want to. And then the flip of that is don't just use that feature for your garbage.
Yes.
I'm glad you want to trade Olamide Zaccheaus. I'm proud of you. I understand it. I get it. Here is my 2029 fourth.
Yes.
I'll
or
drop him
Jalen
for
Hyatt.
you. You can handle the draft pick I can't take, and I'll drop him so you don't have to. I'll do the dirty work there. So don't put your garbage on there. I mean, just leave it to the players that could conceivably be in someone's starting lineup. And while there were weeks that Zaccheaus could have done that, he's not an every week starter by what I would say.
Yeah, those are some of my favorites when people put Zaccheaus or something like that on there and say, but look, he had that one really good week in week 2. He's worth something. And they put on these big like car salesman pitches going on, and it's just something fun.
The tube guy.
Yeah, right. The tube guy. Exactly. And that's how people just try and get rid of stuff. And I agree with you. That completely ruins the point of the trade block. So only put stuff on the trade block you're actually willing to get rid of and people actually want. Drop them if you don't want them.
Yep. The next one on our list, we've actually kind of talked about already, which is not giving yourself permission to make mistakes. Let me skip over that one for just a moment and just tie the next one to what we've just been talking about, which is only communicating by trade offer. If the only way that you show that you're interested in trading something or reach out is by the offer itself with no comments, with no commentary, you're costing yourself value, number one. But two, you're also going to actually make it harder for that trade to work because I don't know what to do necessarily in response to here's an offer. It's out of the blue. It doesn't look like it makes strategic sense for me or for you. What were you trying to get me to do? You need to give me some guidance as to what's available and what you're really after, unless you are truly after my top wide receiver, in which case Zaccheaus, some running back in your 2028 fourth ain't gonna do it. I'll just say no.
Yeah. No, I think this is a good one, and there almost has to be context for everything, right? We talked about this earlier, and trading in a vacuum, while that might help you come up with the right values for players in the long run, you have to have context to almost every trade, or else why did you do it? Right. So communicating by trade offer and just someone saying like, this is my trade for a bunch of middling wide receivers and that's it, does nothing for anybody.
I do know a number of managers who they never comment on anything. They send a trade offer out of the blue. They throw it over the transom, as we used to say back in the old days. Those of you under the age of 40 might need to Google what over the transom means. You throw an offer over the transom and then wait and see what happens to it. And that's just, you can do that. And there are trades that sometimes I just send the offer because it's either really clear what we're trying to do, or I'm trying to just sort of gauge evaluation, see, is this even something that they would consider? And I don't want to have to put a whole paragraph around that. But generally speaking, I like to send the trade, and then in a DM, or better yet, a text message if I have that means of reaching them. Why did I send this offer? What else I might have available if they're looking for something else? I think you might need a second starting running back. So I've got a couple of those. Mm-hmm. If you don't want this one, then this other one might be available. And then try to work a conversation like that because, if you put 9 people in a big blocky trade, who knows what's going on with that? It's really difficult to parse all that out if there's not that sort of communication going on. And likewise, if someone sends me a trade offer, even if it's out of the blue, it's over the transom and there's no explanation. And if it's kind of a reasonable trade, I just don't want it. I like to send back why. I can't send you my only other starting running back for a good wide receiver because I already got 5 of those and I need the running back. So I can't. This trade may look great in a calculator, but it does mean nothing, mm-hmm. and I can't do it, and I can't counter it because there's nothing I can give. There's nothing you can give me for this guy. I have to have him right now.
Right. I think the trade with no communication that ends up working is a very small percentage chance. I think it's under 10%, if that. I will end it on this part, though. If I see trades like this, and I'll get spammed, stuff like this sometimes, where someone will offer me a 28 third and fourth for this one backup wide receiver like 6 times.
Yeah.
And I will 9 times out of 10 just hit reject because you don't clearly know what you want here or what you want to do. So I will more likely than not just reject because I know there's no actual conversation that's actually going to happen here. This was just someone who was bored and hit the button over and over and over again.
Yeah, I'm in a league where there are 4 copies of every player, and it's it's something. And what I see over there is managers who will send out maybe a dozen trade offers for the same set of players and kind of go with whatever the best value comes back fast. And there are times when I have less than 30 minutes between when I'm aware that there was an offer made to when the pieces are gone. And I haven't been able to do any kind of evaluation or any communication. And I just find that, I get that that's efficient. It's a good way to get value back, but it's a really challenging way for the other trade partners to kind of approach that because, if I can't look at this in 30 minutes, then it's going to go away anyway. So probably just as well I was going to reject it.
Yeah. And you might not get the best offer or you might not get the best return, right? If someone needs Josh Jacobs, we'll continue to use him because he's kind of a good point scoring piece. If someone needed Josh Jacobs more than the other person and you just took the first offer that was accepted, someone could have given you more.
Yeah.
And that's doing yourself a disservice.
That to me plays into the idea of patience. Just give this all time to work. Nothing really has to move immediately unless the pick is on the clock. And then it does need to move fairly quickly. And even at that, at least text the guy and said, hey, don't pick yet. I'm going to send you an offer. It takes an hour, fine. So it may take a minute because I'm about to drive home from work.
Right. Yes.
Let them know. And I think, generally speaking, we play in leagues with lots of good people. And, when you have good people, they'll give you some allowance for that.
Yes. That's a mistake on the sheet. Don't trade and drive.
Don't trade and drive. Do not text and drive. It can wait. Please do not do that. It can all wait. Just get where you're going. So you cannot make a trade if you do not get home.
Yes, correct.
Any other ones we want to cover here tonight?
I like the one of not giving yourself permission to make mistakes. And I think my guiding principle in trading, and we talk about this a little later too, is you have to trade to make mistakes, or you have to trade to learn. Make mistakes. You have to make bad trades. There's no such player on earth who's only made good trades. I promise you. There will be anyone on Twitter can hide behind something and say, I only make good trades.
Right.
It's not true.
They're lying.
Yes.
Or they're delusional, either one.
Yes, or both. You can read a ton of people. There are really smart Dynasty analysts like football guys, and their record proves it. The rankings prove it. Congrats to football guys on that, by the way.
Very proud of those guys.
Yes, and you can read as much as you want. You can watch as much as you want. You can listen to as much as you want. The only way to learn is to make mistakes. I traded a 23 first for Zach Wilson. I did that at one time, and I've learned not to do that anymore because I did that. And the mistake I made always helps you grow to the next trade. And when I first started playing Dynasty in 2021, and granted this was the boom when everyone was sitting at home and playing fantasy football.
Right, nothing to do. Right.
Yeah.
Craved contact with anybody.
Yes, literally.
This is as good as anything.
Even if it was texting people online. I joined as many leagues as I could. Find a $5 league, find a $20 league. There's always orphans, there's always dispersals. Playing is the only way to learn. Playing, trading, making mistakes. You have to give yourself permission to make mistakes. You're gonna trade Kyle Pitts for a ton and not need all that back, or you're gonna overpay for someone. That's fine.
Yeah.
You will learn, you can adapt. And by the way, you can fix it. If you trade your 27 first away, they're going to rake you over the coals, but you can get it back.
Yep. Yeah.
And it's going to be hard. And you have to make mistakes. You cannot learn by just sitting stagnant and trying to improve your team and do nothing because you're scared.
Love that. Yeah. A little bit of confidence, but just that willingness to be wrong, because if you don't have that, you're going to operate so tightly that it won't be fun, number one, but you're also not going to get the best value out of it as a dynasty manager in this format. I just have one more, and we don't need to dwell on it. It's just simply don't be a jerk. Mm-hmm. There are people that I won't trade with anymore because they are jerks. They are better words than that. I'm just trying to keep this as PG as possible. So we're going to stick with jerk. Don't be one, period.
Yes, I completely agree. That should be rule number one in anything, basically.
Yeah. Well, let's shift over real quickly to how to take advantage of this when other people are making these mistakes, because we can sometimes see these coming from a mile away. Yes. Is there, and I think, the answer, of course, is there a type of manager who's more prone to making them? Well, earlier first-time managers, number one, are prone to do this. Mm-hmm. But even experienced managers can fall into these kinds of traps. Are there any kinds of managers that you sort of look at and go, okay, I want to watch this because this guy is about to do whatever one of the mistakes that we just went over?
Yes. So quickly, a fun fact about me is I watch the league every year before fantasy starts. It kind of gets me in the football mood. And one thing you hear from Ted, who's one of the guys, who's one of the out-of-towners at the time, is he says, you can win a league with a bunch of idiots by working only 5 minutes a day. And it's true, right? Like if you spend the managers who make these types of mistakes are the ones not paying attention. They don't do waivers. They barely set lineups unless you yell at them. Like they don't pay attention. They're arm's length away.
Yep.
So those are the types of managers that you look into, because I promise you, when you send them that trade, they're going to open the box score. Okay, this guy looks like he's been doing well the last couple of weeks, and they'll accept the trade. The people who are not paying attention are the number one, I guess, target, for lack of a better word, for this.
And this is also where being patient could come into play, because if they are at an arm's length and you send them an offer on Monday, they may not see it until Thursday at 6:45 when they're about to make sure that they don't have a Thursday player in their lineup, and they may see it then. So be patient with these folks who are making mistakes. I'm with you. I think that there are always managers, especially. And we see it. I think I see it more in redraft, because when you start 1-6 in redraft, that's it. You're not. There's nothing there really the rest of the season. You can play it out, but you're not going anywhere. 1-6 in Dynasty means you're vying for Jeremiah Smith or whatever draft capital or other things going on. So there's a reason to stay engaged, but there still are people who are not engaged, and it could be for any kind of reasons, including life reasons. I try to be really careful around folks who are just going through really bad personal experiences or professional experiences, and understand that they're away from their teams for that. But there are people who are just not connected to it, and it may be people who just shouldn't be in Dynasty in the first place. Maybe they don't really get the year-round nature of it and all the nuance of it, and I've said with you, I don't have a problem with taking a few things off their hands if they're not really paying attention.
Especially those managers will not care about draft capital, and that's where you go get your picks.
Absolutely. I assume that, because I do it, I assume you try to take advantage of folks who are either bored or can't evaluate players very well or don't know what to do with their draft picks.
Absolutely. And it's the best trade negotiations to have, right? Because you get to be the car salesman for a second and say, hey, do you see this running back? He had 2 really good weeks. Yes, we're back to waving our arms as the tube men. Look at Tony Pollard. He had a great 2 weeks. I don't want Tony Pollard, but here, you can have him for a first. He's doing really well. That's it's almost harder to sell those, and it makes it a little more fun. And it's fun to take advantage. Obviously, like you said, if someone's got some life stuff, I try not to. But if someone's work was, I have a work, and I have I come home to my partner, and I can't spend 5 minutes a day looking at it, I have no sympathy. Everyone can make a couple minutes somewhere along the line.
How do you make an offer without feeling predatory in these kind of cases, or are you? Because I know people are like this. Are you don't care that you're the vulture circling the dying animal?
I think it depends on the manager and the trade. So I believe any trade sent to me is fair game. Anything that is sent to me by someone else is completely fair game. If the league wants to vote and veto it because, I said yes to a silly trade and they shouldn't have done that, fine. I'm totally fine with that. Where I go on the other side is I at least try to add something of value. If it's like a second in 2028 or something, like where I can at least put my head on the pillow at night knowing I didn't completely rob them blind. But I stand firm in two things. One, any trade sent to you is fair game. Let the league figure it out. Two, one person should never have veto rules. I don't believe in the commissioner having solo veto power, because if the commissioner is the one who is competing for a title and you get some crazy trade done that shouldn't have happened in the first place, they're going to veto it because that makes you better and goes after their title. There is always bias when one person has veto power. Have three, have a small shadow government, I don't care. Like, have the league vote, I know, and when you have the league vote, take whatever 7 people actually cared enough to vote and base it off of that. But one person should never, ever, ever have veto power. And no trade deadlines. Don't do that either.
Yep, agree. Even the savviest managers are going to fall into these traps once in a while. Which of these do you find yourself falling into, if any? Maybe you don't make any mistakes, but I imagine you, like me, still make them all the time.
I make them all the time. I fall for offenses a lot. And whether that's a new QB, a new OC. Last year, my bold take was the Jets were going to be a top 10 offense. I looked really good for the first week when Justin Fields was doing those wheeled route or those tuck touchdowns and all that stuff, and he was running the other way for 50 yards. That looked really good for a week.
Yeah, then they had type on that, and that was that.
Yeah, and then it didn't. And then when he couldn't script everything for a whole game, he got in trouble. But I fall for that a lot, and I'm really trying to pull back, and sometimes that leads me to not liking a McDaniel to the Chargers as much as everyone else, because I'm so gun shy of like buying back into the next hot coordinator being somewhere else. So those are the mistakes I make is like if Fields is going to the Jets, or like the Wilson trade I made because they just added Garrett Wilson and they signed this and Breece Hall is going to be awesome and they fixed the line. Look at the line. How could Zach Wilson mess this up? It's one of those things. Yeah, right. And then he did. It's one of those things where I will fall for offenses a little too much, and I'm trying to pull back on the yoke on that a little. And I think it probably has made me be a little anti-new offenses. Like the offense I'm falling for this year, and I'll just say it, is the Saints. I think they're going to be unbelievable. I have E.T. Chan, as I call him, as a top 12 running back this year, maybe, and like as high as that. And he could have 10 touchdowns and 1,000 yards. And I love this offense, and that could easily burn me. And
they're still having trouble getting in the end zone, even in the first week of practice. But it is still the first week of practice. So
yes. So that's usually my mistakes I fall for, is I will fall for situations over talent. And I think situations don't fix talent or fix value. And I will tie myself to that a little too often. It's one of those things where I think you want to get excited about things. I think that's why I fall for offenses and stuff. Like, you want something new and different and kind of takey at the same time. Yeah. Like the thing that makes dynasty managers stand out is they make a kind of a take or a lean that other people don't agree with, and they're right. That's the other thing about like not being afraid to make mistakes. Like, again, I said the Jets were going to be a top 10 offense. I have fallen for the Jets more than just about anybody in the dynasty space. I am going to probably fall for the Jets again at some point. But I think everyone strives to find something to be excited about or something different. And sometimes the world and the market is right. You don't have to go so crazily the other direction just to be different and try and do something crazy.
Well, Frank, this has been a lot of fun. I hope everybody watching or listening has had some fun with us and probably smacked their forehead a couple of times for things that they now recognize that they've done that maybe they could have avoided. But if a manager were just taking one thing away from our conversation, what would it be?
Trade, trade, trade. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. You are allowed to do a wrong trade. It's not going to be the end of the world.
The sun will still rise tomorrow.
Yes.
Your team's going to lose, but that's okay. It will win.
It's a game. It's fun.
It's a game. Have fun.
Enjoy it. Make a trade. Do something crazy.
Go get Scattaboo. Just go along for the ride.
Yes. Don't trade 2 firsts for him, but go get Scattaboo.
No, unless you want him off my roster. I still have him in a couple of places. I'll take 2 firsts for him. Yeah, just send it over.
Exactly.
Well, Frank, let everybody know where they can find you, aside from in the chat, but you might tell them which chats they can find you into.
Yes. I am in a lot of chats. I'm like the wind, but you can find me on socials at Frank in the Chat, Twitter, Blue Sky, YouTube, all that stuff. So if you see a guy named Frank in the Chat with a little AIM logo, that's me hiding and lurking in these chats. And Trade Addicts Podcast, we record every Tuesday. We have a Patreon if people want to watch us live, record live, and I usually put it out Tuesday nights. So I really appreciate you having me on, though. This has been fun.
Well, thanks so much, and it's been a pleasure getting to know you through the chats. You've been a longtime friend of Football Guys and haunted those chats for quite some time, and some of the live videos that we do is always appreciated. Trivia night, it's where you and I kind of chat a lot ourselves, and of course getting to run into you in Canton. I didn't even run into you. I mean, we actually tried to get together.
Yes, absolutely.
So it was that was always a pleasure to see you in 3 dimensions, pleasure in 2 dimensions as well, and even 1 dimension when we are just chatting offline.
Likewise.
Yes. And thanks to everyone else for tuning in, for watching us on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast platform. If you've liked the conversation you've heard, please put that like, please subscribe, 5-star review or 5-star rating and a review on Apple would be really helpful right about now. And as we are nearing the season, we'll be pivoting a little bit in format, but don't worry, we will still be bringing you some great Dynasty insights that you will be able to use in your leagues immediately. And we'll have another episode of Dynasty Compass next week. So please come back. Thanks.